Good morning. Thank you, Shirley. You'll give Shirley a hand, please. I think most of you probably recognize that last song, but the last verse, I did my best. It wasn't much. I couldn't feel, so I tried to touch. I told the truth. I didn't come to fool you. And even though it all went wrong, I'll stand before the Lord of song. And I just lost the end of it. So, welcome to Zion. It's nice to see the Higher Clan back here with us. Praise God for that. How about those Fairfield Falcons? All my Falcon gear shrunk for some reason. I don't know. I don't have it anymore. So, are there any announcements? Okay. Prayer requests?
Dad's surgery is scheduled for Friday next week. So, yeah, we would appreciate the prayers for the doctors and him. It'll be a week after that he has to stay at the hospital, which is a couple hours away. So just keep him in your prayers.
Okay, Bruce. Just take note of the other announcements in the bulletin. All right, prayer requests. Sides. Okay, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Lord, we just thank you that we can be here this morning. We thank you for the sunshine that you're blessing us with and the warmer weather for this February day. We ask, Lord, that you just continue the works that you're doing, the healing that is happening, the miracles that are taking place daily. We ask, Lord, that you be with those that are just going through tough times right now. We ask, Lord, that you lift them up. If it's us, Lord, that you need to use as your hands that guide us and direct us, that we may be there. We ask, Lord, that you be with us throughout this coming week. We ask especially for blessings upon Bruce's father and his family. Be with us, guide us and direct us until we return to you again someday. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. The praise team would come up.
Please stand. Our first song is Softly and Tenderly.
Softly and tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling for you and for me. Patiently loving, he's waiting and watching, watching for you and for me. Come home, come home, come home, come home. rest promised for you and for me. Though we have sinned, he has mercy and pardon, pardon for you and for me. Come home, come home, come home, come home, ye who are weary, come home. Earnestly, tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling, O sinner, come home.
Our next song is The Love of God.
The love of God is greater far than tongue or pen can ever tell. It goes beyond the highest star and reaches to the lowest hell. The guilty pair bowed down with care. God gave his Son to win his erring child, we reconcile and pardon from his sin. The love of God, how rich and pure, how measureless and strong, it shall forevermore endure. The saints and angels' song. When years of time shall pass away, and earthly thrones and kingdoms fall, when men who hear refuse to pray, on rocks and hills and mountains call, God's love so sure shall still endure, all measureless and strong, redeeming grace to heaven's race, the saints and angels' song. O love of God, how rich and pure, how measureless and strong, it shall forevermore endure, the saints and angels' song. Could we with ink the ocean fill, and where the skies a parchment made, where every stalk on earth a quill, and every man a scribe by trade, to write the love of God above, would drain the ocean dry, nor could the scroll contain the whole, or stretch from sky to sky. O love of God, how rich and pure, how measureless and strong, it shall forevermore endure, the saints and angels' song.
Scripture reading for this morning comes out of Matthew chapter 22, verses 33 through 37. Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question: Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus replied, Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. Please join me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, you may be seated. I believe if the children want to come up.
Come on, kids, come on up, please. Let's have some fun. Let's have some. Hi. Get this out of your guys' way. All right, I'm going to need your help. Today, we're going to talk about loving your neighbor as yourself. And next week, we're going to talk about loving your neighbor. We're actually going to talk about how we can work on loving ourselves better, taking care of ourselves better. And you're going to help me create some pointers for the sermon. Can you do that? Yeah. I imagine most of you guys are always working on yourselves. Right? Sure. Okay. While we're waiting for that, you probably need some candy to hold you over, right? There. Wow. That thing is full of candy. Here, just take one. Whatever you want. Ooh, dots. If I chew those, I'm going to lose teeth. Those things are. There you go. There you go. You might need to get into that, and give me a second here to get my ducks in a row. All right. So we're going to talk about things that we could do to help us to be better people. Do you understand? You know? What are some things that we could do that help us to be better people? Well, hang on. You can pass this around as you guys have answers.
Believe in Jesus.
Ooh, here, hold that. You hold that. Believe in Jesus. That's excellent. I before E. Did I get that right? Believe in Jesus. Good. Somebody else. What's something we can do that helps us work on ourselves? Here, I'll go down. Do you have one?
I just forgot.
Just for. Well, do you have one?
Caring about God.
Caring about God. That's good.
Helping.
Ooh, who said helping? Nice, Rhett. Helping. Helping, just like helping who? Okay, sure. I saw your point. All right, what do you got, big guy?
Love God and love your neighbor.
Ooh, love God, love your neighbor. Okay. Let me ask you a question. What if, and maybe you don't know anybody, have you ever met anybody who wasn't very nice? Okay. How did you feel when you were near that person that wasn't very nice?
Scared.
Scared? Okay. And we don't want to be grumpy, mean people. We want to be good people. So you're saying if we believe in Jesus, or we love God, and we love our neighbor, we care about God, we help others, that helps us be a better person, right? Those are all good things, right? I think they're all good things. Is there anything else? Did we leave anything else off the table? Is there something we should add? Did you? Here. Okay, what is it, sweetheart?
Pray about more than once.
Okay, pray.
About more than once a day.
Oh, pray a lot. There we go. Pray a lot. I like that. Prayer matters, doesn't it? It makes a difference. Does God answer your prayers? Yeah, He does all the time. Pray a lot. That's good. All right, these are good things. All right, so let's forget the spiritual things for a minute. Is there anything that you do personally that helps you to be a better person? What are some things that you do that you would say make you a better person? Can you think of anything? What you got?
Listening to teachers and parents.
Oh, hey, being respectful, listening. That's good. That's something we can do. We're not forced to do it. We get to choose to do it. Listening, being respectful, that's good. Something else like that. Is there anything that we can do that helps us to be better people? I like that one. That's a good one. Because we can do that. Yes.
Love God.
Yes, we love God.
Love Dad.
Love Dad. We'll put that on there. Love Dad. That's good. Anybody else?
Love Mom.
Love Mom. And Dad. How about we just love everybody? Okay? Love everyone. You know what? And that's kind of what we're talking about. How can we better love everybody? Not just mom and dad, but everybody, right? Because sometimes it's not easy. Have you ever tried to love somebody that was kind of cranky? Huh? Was it in the family? No, don't tell. Okay, just kidding. All right, you guys are great. Go sit down. Well, you were very helpful. Very helpful. All right. Oh, kids, they say the cutest things. So, I don't think I'm on. Am I on? I am. My goal today is, that we could leave here a little bit better than when we came in, improve ourselves. I personally, I believe in having a toolbox that's got tools in it that help me be a better person, help me with my marriage, help me with my relationships. I have discovered I have to work on those things all the time because I'm not, you know me, I'm not necessarily the easiest person maybe to be around, right, Janelle? Yeah. I'm a typical human being. I can be a little prickly or annoying, or I can be a lot of things. And so I always want to work on myself, and so that's kind of the essence of where we're headed today. So in Matthew 22, as we read in the passage in the bulletin there, Jesus had just dispatched the Sadducees. And they were asking questions about marriage and divorce, and Jesus, they were using a trick question about divorce and the resurrection, and he solved that for them. And now the Pharisees, I don't know, in my mind I kind of see like, oh, he got them. Let's send in our best guy and see if we can trick him. And so they send in their best guy. He's an expert in the law, and he asks, what is the greatest commandment in the law? And Jesus' response is actually 2 commandments instead of 1. So I would imagine the expert in the law is expecting the Shema, which is Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And he adds to it. He adds from Leviticus. Actually, the second commandment is from Leviticus. And he says, and the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. And I want to focus on that today. Love your neighbor as yourself, because this is a command from God. But what Jesus has just done, he summed up the entire 10 commandments in 2 commandments. Love God. How do we love God? The first 4 commandments. And how do we love each other? The last 6 commandments. And so he sums them up in these 2 commandments. And before we talk about loving your neighbor, which we're going to talk about next week, we need to talk about loving ourselves. And that just sounds weird, loving ourselves. But the reality is, if we're lousy at loving ourselves, the reality is we're probably going to be lousy at loving other people. Does that make sense? We're going to try to unpack that. Not everybody probably believes that, but I believe that broken people tend to make broken people. And here's the good news. Jesus came so that we don't have to be lousy people or miserable people or broken people. We can actually change. I know there's people that tell me people can't change. I believe people can change. I'm different. I used to be a jerk, and now I'm less of a jerk. I'm actually kind of delightful. And so people can change. And so our goal today is self-evaluation. What might need to change in me to be a better lover of my neighbor? And so I'm going to propose this idea. And I don't. Does any ladies have like a compact in their purse? Do people use purses anymore with like a mirror? Does anybody have a mirror in their purse? Okay. All right. Well, imagine I have two mirrors for a second. A mirror, and one mirror is a mirror that would reflect maybe the world, and the other mirror would reflect maybe some spiritual truth, and I'm going to unpack that here in a minute. And the reason I thought mirror is from this passage. So if you could turn in James chapter 1, we're going to look at a couple verses in the book of James, because it'll help me make my argument here. In James 1, and I'm going to start at verse 22, James says this: "Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says." That's not a difficult truth, right? Don't just listen to it. Do what it says. Anyone who listens, and so he goes on and says this: anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in a mirror and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. So his illustration is you read the word and you walk away and you forget anything that you just heard or anything that just, God impressed upon you, and you go about your own life. He goes on and says, "But whoever looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues in it, not forgetting what they've heard but doing it, they will be blessed in what they do." So in a very simplistic way, if we had two mirrors, and one was the world and one was God, and we looked into God's, and I'll call it the Word, and we did what it said, and we acted, based on what it's teaching us, we would be blessed. But if we look in this other mirror, we don't see the way that we should see. And really, that's the gist of many of our problems. When we look at things, we don't always see the way that we should see. And so I'm just going to throw this up here. We'll talk about it later. Identity. I'm getting ready to go to ECA this week, and I'll do a chapel for the middle school and the high school. And man, whenever I go, I'm always reminded, especially with students, one of the biggest issues that they struggle with is identity. Who am I? And why? Because we're looking in the wrong mirror. And I can speak to that. I grew up as a narcissist. And we have any narcissists in the room? Jen's laughing because she knows it's true. And I've shared this with you. She wrote in her yearbook, "I hope you find somebody who loves you more than you love yourself." And ironically, it's her. As I did. I loved Jeffrey. Which is weird because I've seen myself in the mirror and it's not exactly, fantastic. But in my mind, somehow it looks differently than what it actually is in reality. So obviously there's some work to do. But anyways, my point is simply, I had some identity issues. And lo and behold, when I came to know Jesus, I came to know him as a young man. We were talking about with the boys. And then I rededicated my life later. And there had to be this change. I had to realize that my identity was rooted in a whole bunch of other things. And so let's talk about that a little bit. When we look in this mirror of the world, here's the things that we think matter. Is there another slide? There we go. Looks. Looks don't matter. They really don't. I know that we all got dolled up pretty this morning, but looks don't matter. We think they do. And here's part of the tragedy, that if we're a young person and we're letting the world dictate what beauty is, then we're going to be disappointed. You know what I'm saying? I'm no Brad Pitt, okay? I'm not. And I don't think Brad Pitt should be the model of anything anyways. But I'm not him, but we might say that's what a guy should look like, or this is what a gal should look like, or so on and so forth. Here's what the Bible says. This is talking about Jesus in Isaiah. This is referencing that he had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. Jesus didn't come in a beautiful way, which is really kind of, if you look at ancient art, not ancient, but older art about Jesus, we always paint him, beautifully, or we depict him as a handsome white man, and he wouldn't have been white either. And so we try to cast God in our own image. But it says that he didn't have anything that we would be attracted in because he looked good. Jesus isn't like this super celebrity, like, I'm going to follow that guy. And that's weird that we would do that. That we would, I'm going to follow somebody. I guess, can we do that on the Facebook? Can we follow people? It's weird. And don't follow me, because I only do nonsensical things on Facebook. I just want to annoy people. I don't know, it's just my gift. So for some of us, looks mattered, and I'm not going to lie. For me, I think I might have had a 5-minute window where I was good looking, and then that moved. So looks don't matter. Hey, what about success? We care about success, right? I remember as a young man, I did everything I could to try to out-achieve my father so I could get my father to say that he was proud of me. And then later as a man, I'm like, why am I doing that? That's nonsense. I don't need my dad's approval. My dad just loves me. I don't need to outdo my father. And now all my children have overachieved me, so we have that out of the way. Like, success matters. Now, I'm not saying, the Bible's very clear. If you're going to do something, do it to the best of your ability. If you're going to move a pile of bricks and do it well. But don't get wrapped up in what you do that's who you are. I don't introduce myself as, hey, I'm Pastor Jeff. Down in the basement, we were playing Pictionary with the kids, and I just put Jeff on the board. Now, it's weird. I'm used to being a teacher. When you're a teacher, you're Mr. Lewis. So even the kids today that are grown up that I've done their weddings, they're like, Mr. Lewis. They won't call me Jeff, which is weird. I called my parents by their first name, Warner and Karen. That probably seems weird. But your job isn't who you are. It isn't. Here's what the Bible says. The greatest among you will be your servant. For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. I mean, literally, if I want to be first, I got to be last. So if you've got some kind of, success complex, do that. Be last. I like winning. Okay? Jen would tell you I'm competitive. So if we're going to do something, I want to compete at it. I mean, I do. But I'm not living there. I don't go home, I didn't win. I will brag about it if I did. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I am. If you go into my office, you're going to see CrossFit medals and my Spartan medal, and I didn't get, everybody got a medal. Everybody got it, okay? Literally. I can go buy trophies and put whatever I want on them and pretend. It doesn't matter. It's the success thing. Can you be satisfied where you're at in what you do? Or do people identify you because of what you do? Oh, that's kind of weird. All right, intellect. For some people, it's important to know that, I'm a genius. I've got a 4.0, and that's the one thing I didn't like about school. The kids, were always competing for the best GPA, and they get all bent out of shape, and it causes emotional constipation, and there's just all sorts of weird things that happen. And this is from a guy who graduated 242 out of 246. So clearly, I did not care about I didn't care about anything I should have cared about. I should have cared about things like math and history, but I didn't. Fortunately, you know, that's not my issue. But for some people it is. You got to be smart. You got to be the smartest. Your intellect is the most important thing. But the Bible says the wisdom of the world is foolishness in God's sight. But clearly, if you read the Bible, if you read Proverbs, God encourages us to pursue godly wisdom. He encourages us to chase after, again, looking in the right mirror. The Word of God has an answer for every question you're going to ask. You say, well, that's not true. I've looked for those answers and they've not come. Spend time looking in the Word and you will find the answer. Maybe you have to read the whole book before you find the answer, but it's there. Well, how about strength? This is the one that kills me the most. I love being strong. And God took it away, and now I can hardly open a box of cereal. Like, Jen, can you open this box of Lucky Charms? But it mattered to me, and I don't know why. Actually, I do know why. I'm a broken person. And I was a tiny kid, tiny. I was always picked last. I couldn't pass the presidential physical fitness thing. Remember that when you were in high school, we had to do the presidential physical fitness thing, and you got like a certificate from the president saying, hey, you can climb a rope. I couldn't pass it. And I didn't get picked in dodgeball because I was the target in dodgeball. I was inept. In basketball, I couldn't catch the basketball. It would bounce off my face. I was bad. And so strength mattered to me, and the reason it did was this. I remember the day I showed up in Germany at the unit, and the first sergeant, he's trying to determine who's going to what platoon, and then his question was, which one of you plays football? I did not play football, but I said I play football. And then I got picked for that platoon, and it about killed me. But I changed, and I did it to protect myself. Strength became the way I was able to keep people from picking on me. Do you understand that? It had nothing to do with strength. It just had to do with trying to protect myself. But it doesn't matter, because the Bible says that some trust in chariots and some use horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. In other words, God is our strength. God's not expecting me to exert my own strength to bring about kingdom things. He's the strength that's in me. It doesn't matter. All these things, and all of us probably to some degree have bought into some of these things. They don't matter. They really don't. You say, well, this is how the world is designed. Well, and that's a shame, because we end up spending a lot of time chasing things that don't matter. You know, I watched the Bee Gees documentary on HBO Max the other day. I like the Bee Gees. Anybody like the Bee Gees? I do, like the Bee Gees. I wish I could sing in falsetto. And at the very end, because all his brothers are gone now, he said this. And actually, if you watch the documentary, he started by speaking nonsense. His first statement was, all truth is relative and something else. And I'm like, oh. And I still watched it, but at the very end, he said this. If I could have my brothers back, I would have given up everything we did in music just to have them. All the success, and they had a lot of success. The Bee Gees, I mean, they've done a lot of things. But he said he'd rather have his brothers back than have all of that. And I'm like, he gets it. He gets the most important thing are the relationships. How much time have we wasted chasing after the wrong things? All right, let me move on. So which mirror are we looking in? Because we tend to adjust based on the things that we see. And so let me pose this last one. I think I got position up there. Who I know, that actually matters. Who I know matters. And that's true with both mirrors. If I care about the world, then it matters, and I'm going to adjust my lifestyle to satisfy whatever I see, the reflection that I want to that I want to meet. Does that make sense? If I'm going to be strong, if I'm going to be successful, if I'm going to be pretty, or whatever it is. But if I'm over here, and if I had a mirror, I'd put a picture of Jesus on it, because when I look at the mirror in God's Word, I want to see Him. I want to see that reflected. And actually, if you said anything about Jeffrey, I would love you to say, well, I think Jeffrey loved Jesus. That'd be the only thing I care that you see. I don't even care that you say, I thought he was a great pastor. There's no such thing as a great pastor, because God's doing the work. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's God who's doing it. If the ministry is a success, it's God who's the success. It's not the person. I wish we could get that. If you did something good that was spiritual, it was God who did it. It wasn't you. I used to hate it. People would say at the end of the service in my first ministry, good job, Pastor. I'm like, it's not, praise the Lord then. Because it's not me, it's the Lord. I'm not capable of anything good. You know, I gotta brag on this. Can I brag on it? Can I share what we talked about? These guys trusted Jesus at camp a couple weeks ago. And we were talking about that. And you know, he said it was scary to step out and trust Jesus. But then we talked about the kind of faith that it takes and trust, you know? And that was so encouraging. It was so encouraging to see that the importance of who you know, and we talked about that. What's it going to mean to follow Jesus? What's it going to mean to have Him be Lord in your life? How does that correlate? What a great conversation. It blessed me so much. Who you know, that matters. And I'm just telling you, you got to put this mirror down. This mirror, it doesn't care about you. Those things you chase, they don't matter. They don't. No, there's nothing wrong with good things happening in your life. I like to look back on the past and remember all the good things. But the past is the past. I want to talk about 3 things which I think are relatively true when it comes to how we can be better people. And the first one is identity, the second one is core woundings, and the third one is self-care. And when I think of self-care, I have these 4 R's, and they're rhythm, rest, relationships, and ranch. And what rhythm means is 6 days you shall work, and the 7th day you shall rest. You know what some of our problem is, which makes us lousy people? We're always working. Show of hands, who loves to work? I love to work. I would work all the time. And you know, I'm glad you raised your hand back there, because in ministry, we can use the argument, well, it's ministry. We should always be working. That's a lie. How many of you want to rest? I'm going to rest. I hear people say, well, we'll rest when we're dead. No, I don't think we are. I think we're going to go to heaven and have meaningful things to do. But our rhythm's off. Do you know there's actually been, I think the Soviet Union, long before me, did a test where they tried to work people without a break. And you know what happened to the people? They died. You can't work all the time. Your little brain needs a rest. Your heart needs a rest. You need a rest. Rest is good. Who made rest? He did. He made it. Which means it's good. Who made work? Trick question. Yeah, God, you said God, didn't you? You should get some candy for that. That's a hard one. Most people think that the devil made work. God created labor. Labor's good. I love labor. I love labor with Chip and Dale. Those guys are awesome. Every job is easier. Rhythm, rest, relationships. You can say I'm working from the bottom and I'll work my way up. Relationships are important. Relationships can be exhausting and relationships can be fulfilling. Here's what I would tell you. Surround yourself with people who speak life into you. And the people that don't speak life, it's okay if you don't spend a lot of time with them. Now, I get it. You're going to try to make the argument, well, we're doing ministry. Right now we're talking about self-help and self-health. If there's people that suck the life out of you, you don't have to, you say, well, you know, they're in my family. Guess what? You set healthy boundaries. Who's in control of the boundaries in your life? The other person or you? You. Healthy boundaries. And I don't have time to unpack all that, but if you came in and that was your issue, we would talk about how to have healthy boundaries. One of the things that I taught on over and over and over at ECA was how young believers can have healthy boundaries. Imagine, so this is why I add the ranch thing. It doesn't have anything to do with ranch dressing. Imagine you're a ranch, and this is what your ranch looks like. It has maybe a fence around it, and in the center is your casa, your house, and it's a strong house. It's built square, and it's solid, and maybe there's a well, and the well represents your spiritual life, and there's pasture, and there's all kinds of things. Imagine a healthy ranch, okay? That's what we want to be. We want to be a healthy ranch. That if you came and you visited my ranch, you walked away and you felt better for being at the ranch. Does that make sense? Maybe I fed you. You didn't fall into a snake pit or get lost in the weeds. Okay? It was a good experience. But the truth is, some of us, we're not healthy ranches. We might look like this. And this is a general statement. This isn't exhaustive by any means. I picked this up from a counselor years ago, and I still love it. So imagine you're one of these kinds of ranches, the Fix Me Ranch. The Fix Me Ranch looks like this. It's a wide open gate, and the attitude is, do it for me. I left it open so you can come in and you can work my ranch. I can't do anything. I need you to come in and fix it and help me. Some people are like that. It's the Fix Me Ranch. Sometimes I refer to them kind of as doormats. Sounds bad. I'm used to people stepping on me and wiping their feet on me. That's the kind of person that I am. I'm not saying me personally. That's not my ranch. I'll describe my ranch in a minute. There's the relationship ranch. It's a wide open gate, and they're usually people pleasers. I was that guy. That was my ranch. I wanted to make my ranch everything that made everybody else happy. Do you know how exhausting that is? When you're the people pleaser ranch, I got to make everybody happy. At some point, God hit me in the head with a 2x4, and I realized the only person that I need to please is God, and then my spouse. You guys are low on the list. You are, but I'm talking about my own personal health. Do you know how many people are so tired of trying to make everybody happy? Can you make everybody happy, Gerald? No, you cannot. Because some people, they're special. How about the Stay Out Ranch? It's a closed gate, and it's not just closed and locked, there's security. Nobody gets in. Nobody's ever going to hurt me again. Nobody can even come close. There's like little towers with little guards. And then the last one, the No One Home Ranch, because they're busy taking care of somebody else's ranch. So these are just ideas I pose to say, listen, we're all working on things so that we could have a better, healthier ranch. And it begins with simple things. It's not actually complicated. Rhythm, rest, relationships. No, go back. I didn't cover the first two. I want to talk about those real quick. So I want to talk about core woundings. I'm actually working backwards. So a core wounding is this. Something may have happened to you in your life that so it's trauma A, trauma B. Either you got too much of something that you shouldn't have got, or you were denied something that you need for basic life. And it hurt you. And what often happens is we're like an onion. We have layers. At the very root is this wound. And over years, layers have built up around it. And now all you see is the dysfunction. You can't see the wound. And I can do this one pretty easy. I was hurt very deeply in ministry. If anything happens like that, I immediately go to that behavior of fear and anxiety and try to create distance now between me and those people. And it doesn't mean that that's actually what happened. I've shared this before and I'll share it again. If you've ever watched the movie Ransom, where the little boy is kidnapped, he's actually kidnapped by 2 cops and then they come and collect the money. And they had never seen their kidnappers. But when Gary Sinise, who's the kidnapper, comes in and the little boy hears his voice, he wets himself. He immediately goes back to all the fear and anxiety that happened. My favorite story in the Bible, Joseph's story. Joseph sees his brother and he becomes emotionally undone. Everything that he thought was far, far away behind him comes to the surface and overwhelms him, and he is unable to function. In fact, it says he goes into a room and he bawls like a baby. Core woundings have the ability to ruin our lives. And actually, they make it hard for us to be good lovers of neighbors because we haven't dealt with our own garbage. If we can't deal with our own garbage, how can we help anybody with their garbage? And so, that's something that we have to work on. I was fortunate. After my bad experience in ministry, I stumbled upon a friend who was a counselor, and he took the time to work with me, and he helped me. He helped me discover some amazing things. One of my favorite things, he was praying, and he said that when he was praying, he saw this huge anchor, and it was covered with all this red tape, and I don't know what it meant to him, but that's what he was describing to me. And he asked me to do this. He says, I want you to go, and I want you to start to make a list of everybody that you're mad at. And ironically, halfway through the list, I recognized that they were people I couldn't control. All of them. My issue was I was having trouble with people that I couldn't control, which is a problem within itself, right? Because you're the pastor, why are you trying to control anybody? How sad is that? So that's an important issue. And the third one is pretty easy. Where is my identity rooted? And we already explored that. Is it rooted in these things that don't matter instead of the things that matter? Now, I'm not perfect at it, but I want to be better at it. I want to be a better pastor. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better friend. I want to be a better person. And it only happens if I'm willing to work on myself. In order for that to happen, I have to become introspective. And I have to look and see what are the things that have become my idols. And I think that's the identity issue. What are the things that I love more than I love God? I like exercise, but it's not more important than God. I love my family, and I do, but it's not more important than God. I love my children and my grandchildren, but they're not more important than God. And I love this church. I had the weirdest dream last night. I was over 70 years old and still looked a little bit like I do now. I was standing in a little country church in the middle of nowhere, and unfortunately it wasn't you guys. And I was standing before them with tears, talking about the most meaningful thing that ever happened to me was when I discovered that ministry in a little church was better than ministry in a big church. And then they gave me a motorcycle. I kid you not. That actually happened. It was an orange BMW, and surprisingly, it was an automatic, because I took it out for a drive. That was my dream. Because I'm going to be honest with you. I think sometimes we think the things that we do are not good enough for us. But I think if you can get to where you see God and your relationship is meaningful, the peripheral stuff's not going to matter. And here's the beauty of all that. When that happens, people want to be my friend. I can love people that are maybe not so lovable. And I can tell you right now, all of us probably have some sector or some group of people like, I'm not going to love those people. I could sit over here. Kudos to Jeff and Becky, because they're sitting there. So clearly, their love has increased. I'm kidding. I'm only kidding. The seat was taken. I need help. I'm so sorry. Praise the Lord. I'm going to have the worship team come on up. Listen, there are all kinds of things that can happen to you. Just in my experience in ministry, these three things, identity, the core woundings, and just having our life, our ladder against the wrong wall and our life upside down, those things can lend themselves to us being sick. Sick in a way that we're not so fun to be around. Sick in a way that we actually hurt those that we love and we don't mean to. Listen, we've all been there where maybe we snapped at somebody when we shouldn't have, or we said something we shouldn't, or we neglected somebody. I want the Lord to help me get to a place where I can love everybody. Everybody. It hurts me that we actually qualify who should be loved and who shouldn't be loved. Because God did not do that to us. For God so loved who? Who? Is that everybody? Then why can't we do it? Because we're not working on ourselves. Somehow in America, we've embraced the idea that I can have it my way and be anything that I want to be, and there's no consequence. And that's a lie. Paul said this, I've become all things to all people for one reason, that I might win some. What has to change in you? What has to change in me that we might have an opportunity to minister to somebody? What do I need to set aside? What do I need to put away, to get rid of? What has to happen? Which mirror are you looking at? If I had a mirror, it would be so cool. I would break it and throw it in the trash. And as I thought of that, I'm reminded of our stained glass windows, because this is what God does. He takes all the broken pieces and He puts it back together better than it was in the first place. That's what God does, right? And you know what I am? I'm a stained glass window. I remember when I thought I was perfect and pristine. But then, you know, God didn't break me. I broke myself. But you know who put me back together? God did. And God made me beautiful. And He makes you beautiful. We care about what people look like. Do you know who made you? God made you. God only makes beautiful things.
Please stand. Our song is I Must Tell Jesus.
I must tell Jesus all of my trials. I cannot bear these burdens alone. In my distress, He kindly will help me. He always loves and cares for His own. I must tell Jesus, I must tell Jesus, I cannot bear my burdens alone. I must tell Jesus, I must tell Jesus, Jesus can help me, Jesus alone. I must tell Jesus all of my troubles. He is a kind, compassionate friend. If I but ask Him, He will deliver. Make of my troubles quickly an end. I must tell Jesus, I must tell Jesus, I cannot bear my burdens alone. I must tell Jesus, I must tell Jesus, Jesus can help me, Jesus alone. Tempted and tried, I need a great Savior, can help my burdens to bear. I must tell Jesus, I must tell Jesus, He all my cares and sorrows will share. I must tell Jesus, I must tell Jesus, I cannot bear my burdens alone. I must tell Jesus, I must tell Jesus, Jesus can help me, Jesus alone. Oh, how the world of evil allures me. Oh, how my heart is tempted to sin. I must tell Jesus, and He will help me over the world the victory to win. I must tell Jesus, I must tell Jesus, I cannot bear my burdens alone. I must tell Jesus, I must tell Jesus, Jesus can help me, Jesus alone. I never know how it's going to end. And again, she picked the song, but here, let me say this to you. When I started in ministry, I discovered something. Pastors are woefully underprepared and grossly inadequate to help with the emotional needs of their congregations. The problems that you and I face sometimes are beyond our ability to help. And just like the song, I must tell Jesus, sometimes we need to talk to somebody. And there are people out there, there are Christian counselors and people, and I've had 2 times in my life where I've needed somebody to help me. I used to be on medication for depression, and my therapist helped me to overcome that, and I'm not on medication anymore. It doesn't mean that I don't have moments where I'm taken back and I'm reminded of something that I think is going to happen and it doesn't. But I know this. I have benefited from talking to other people who can be trusted, who love me, who care about me, and who know Jesus, and help me see from Scripture how to fix or mend my broken heart. And that's not just true for me, that's true for all of us. And so if you need help in any capacity, I'll be glad to talk with you or help you to find somebody that can help you to maybe get that burden lifted. Because I know that some of you are carrying weights that seem maybe too heavy to bear. And what good are we if we don't help each other? I must tell Jesus. Talking about it frees us from it, and it no longer has the power over us that it used to. Would you pray with me? Heavenly Father, give us freedom and courage to work on ourselves so that we can be more filled, so that we would be a well that's overflowing, that somebody bumped into us, they would get wet, they would experience you. And help us, if we're carrying things that are breaking our hearts or they're hurting us or they're wounds that are still not healed, you came to help us, to rescue us, and to do better than fix us, to make us new, to make us whole. That's the kind of community we want to be. A community of believers who are working on themselves and loving each other. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.